the recording. All right. I would like to thank everybody for being here. This is the second iteration of our Careers with Social Impact Success series, focused around psychology. This is all about exploring career pathways, networking, getting questions answered. Really, the design of this program was to show students the many different directions that they could take with the same degree. For those of you who don't know me or haven't gotten my newsletters, my name's Newton Kimberly. I'm our career catalyst for Careers with Social Impact. You'll probably be seeing a lot of me in the next year, but just know that I am here to help. And of course, with these alumni and our other great alumni that we have, they're just here to help and to connect you and to get you the resources that you need to make your decisions, of course, moving forward. But I'm just going to go ahead and we have some intro slides and just a couple introductions. I'm going to ask the panelists to just introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about what they got their degree in, and a little bit about their journey since leaving Ohio Wesleyan and kind of where they are now. So we are going to start with Dr. Alexander McNeil.
Hello, OU students. My name is Dr. Alex McNeil. As Newton said, I'm a clinical psychologist, and I graduated from Ohio Wesleyan University in 2010. Since graduating, I've gotten a doctorate in a school that was then called Massachusetts School of Professional Psychology, and now is called William James College. And it's near Boston, Massachusetts. It's in a little town called Newton. So, you know, we've all heard that name during this presentation. So, you know, just a little information about my doctorate. You know, I got something called a PsyD. Now, PsyD is a doctorate of psychology, and it is a degree that, just like a PhD is a doctorate of clinical psychology, a PsyD is also a degree of clinical psychology. The difference is the focus of the degrees. PhDs are usually focused on research, and PsyDs are usually focused on clinical experience, and that includes psychological testing and neuropsychological testing. What I decided to do was I decided to focus on a PsyD because I was interested in therapy and doing therapy. So I, chose to do individual and family therapy in my career because it has an enormous impact on people's lives. And I find that the skill set for therapy is much more tailored to my strengths: talking, processing, empathizing, and synthesizing data and science and tailoring it to help individuals and families in their journey. So that's a brief part of who I am. And as the presentation goes on, I'll be talking a little bit more about my career.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alex. It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And now we'll move on to Anna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna. I graduated in 2017, so not too long ago. It feels a long time saying it, but it also feels like yesterday. I just recently graduated with my master's in organizational psychology from Alliant International, and I work more on the business side of psych, but also in assessment. I've had my toe in a bunch of the fields and figured out that I like being behind the desk rather than face-to-face with the clients. So that's kind of more my area.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anna. So we're going to dive into the first half of this program is going to be some pre-prepared questions just to kind of talk with our panelists about their experience and to get them to share a little bit about what psychology both meant for them, kind of what they got out of it, and how it helped them on their career path. So the first question that I'd like to ask, and of course we can open it to whoever would like to go first, was what about psychology was attractive to you when you think back at your time at OU? Kind of what brought you into the psychology field? Is it something you always knew you wanted to do, or was it something new for you?
Do we want to go, Anna?
Oh, sure. So I was diagnosed with ADHD and anxiety when I was 17, and no one really talked to me about it. I didn't know what it meant. I knew what I felt, but I didn't know how to interact with others. They told me I interacted differently, but I didn't know what that meant, what that looked like, how to better relate to the people around me. And so when I came to school, it was my way in of understanding myself. And a little bit as I grew into it, how can I better understand and interact with others? because I'm experiencing these things, other people all have their own journeys. And so figuring out kind of the whys and hows and best practices, just like of being a good person and interacting effectively with the world around you, was my major draw.
For me, it was definitely not what I wanted to be at first. I wanted to be an ice cream truck driver, actually, when I was a kid. Everybody loves an ice cream truck driver. It's the most popular guy on the block, for sure. So I wanted to be an ice cream truck driver when I was a kid. And sadly, that did not happen. I ended up taking the route of clinical psychologist instead. It all went downhill from there. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. But no, I wanted to be a writer after that. Actually, when I was a teenager, I wanted to be a writer. And then later on, I realized that being a clinical psychologist, it's like, if you're a writer, you can't be a clinical psychologist. But if you're a clinical psychologist, you could be a writer. It like, one's a one-way street, one's a two-way street. And I was like, I'll take the two-way street. So I decided to be a psychologist. Somebody helped me out, similar to what Anna was saying. Somebody helped me out when I was a kid. And, it really made an impact on me. I think one of the big things that happened was that I realized that if I could help somebody the way that I received help, then I would be satisfied. It's one of those life value, life mission things. I was like, I'll be happy if I could just help out another person. So, it is, a really nice career in terms of financially. I'm just going to be upfront, during this, there's only 3 students here, but I remember when I was in OWU, I really wanted honest conversation about what the field was and what it wasn't. So this is what I want to deliver to you, as honest and as real as possible. It is financially very stable career. It really is tough though. And I've noticed that, it can't be finances alone that keep you in the career. It has to be something deeper than that. It has to be kind of digging deep into why you're doing it. And really for me was working with kids, and it was working with young adults, especially, and making an enormous life-changing impact on their lives. I got to say this for emphasis, and I really think it's important. You will, if you do an effective work in this field, you will change people's lives. Like, you won't change everybody's life. And there are going to be some people that you don't vibe with and don't vibe with you, and that happens. But there are going to be people that you encounter that you notice that you altered their trajectory for the positive. And that is so incredibly rewarding that keeps me in the field, and that keeps me, continuing to push harder and harder to be a better therapist. So I guess the big thing I wanted to say about all of that was that it didn't start with, if you notice the ice cream truck driver thing, it really started to be like, I want to be admired, right? Then it was this writer idea, which is like, I want to be creative. And then it became a psychologist, which was sort of like, this is a good career, like this will be financially stable. And then as I've developed my own business and I've really developed as a therapist, it was, I'm going to change a person's life. And I know what that feels like because somebody changed my life. And that means everything to me.
Absolutely. Thank you both for sharing. I know that's digging kind of deep for some of these, but I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing all that information with us.
Yeah.
So kind of just moving on to the next question, which is of course a continuation of that one. Thinking about your time at Ohio Wesleyan and thinking about the psychology courses, the psychology professors, I mean, a lot of which are still present in the department. I just would like to hear a little bit about how those courses and kind of how what you got out of those helped prepare you for your current role. Because I know especially when you're in the classes, it's kind of hard to see the connection between how something would work in, a full-time position, in a job, in a career role. So, and also bonus points if you can remember the name of the professor and if you can remember the name of the class that it came from.
Okay, sure, yeah. So the professors, I thought about this question long and hard. The professors who really made an impact on me aren't quite there anymore. Dr. Sarah Bunnell was a teacher for actually like 3 or 4 of my courses within the program. She was fabulous. She was open and honest. She taught my developmental psych class and told us, like, this is what it looks like in the real world. And her ability to kind of connect what we were doing in class and the theories we were building on and what it actually looks like in a job and in the real life was insane for me, because in most of our classes, we didn't really get that. It was, here's the theory, here's what it looks like in a textbook, but not, here's how this will translate into a job. And this is what you're going to be doing every day, which it's hard to imagine when you don't know, like when you're still in those classes. And then I had an organizational psychology class with Dr. Richard Levy, who retired, I think, the year I graduated. And he was fabulous and gave me the best advice. If there's anyone interested in organizational psych, or IO is what we call it in the field, work in an office. Work in an office, whatever you need to do, intern, figure it out, because if you go into those classes or into an upper level program without ever having been in the situations, it's going to be the same thing and it's going to be just as hard. But I spent a couple years working in the field and everything made a lot more sense. And I got to integrate the practices I was learning in my master's program in the office that I'm currently running. So take all the real life experiences you can. And if you have the questions about what like theories or things look like in like the professional world, ask your professors, because they know, and most of them are really willing and able to help you kind of figure out what that could look like as a career path.
Yeah, mine was, I'm going to try to keep things short because I'm looking at the time too. I want to make sure we have time for the questions too. Is that I'll just keep it short. Dr. Judalyn Ryan was my mentor in Ohio Wesleyan. Dr. Ryan changed my life. We talk about life trajectories changing. The best professor I had in college, one of the best teachers I've ever had in my life. She taught humanities. She taught, African-American literature. She taught, literature classes that were extremely based on critical ideas and being critical of the world and just understanding humanity and learning empathy and learning how to see another side, see another point of view. And we practiced that in class because we would all have debates in class and we'd have conversations and we would practice hearing other people's point of view, sharing our own. Those were invaluable to me. So, Dr. Ryan, if you hear this, you changed my life. I appreciate you.
Thank you both. I know that, I feel like every alumni from Ohio Wesleyan, and the reason we usually only have alumni on these panels is for this kind of reason, to be able to share the stories, to let you students know that we've all been right where you are and to kind of help guide you through that process. So kind of going straight off again, you both led perfectly into my next question, but I just want you to talk a little bit about your decision. So I know your decision to get a further education degree. So once you've received your bachelor's, or at some point you knew that you were going to go back for your master's, that you knew you were going to go back for your PsyD. And I know that that can be a big point of contention among students of which degree to pursue and where to go and kind of how to manage that decision process. So if you could just both talk a little bit about, when you knew, why you knew, and kind of the process that took you there.
Okay, yeah. So my background is all clinical. Right out of graduation, I worked in forensics for about a year. I did ABA, therapy for individuals with severe developmental disabilities. And then I totally switched gears and sat in on HR. And I realized that I really hated a lot of HR, but I loved the pieces that had to do with people. And I loved the clinical aspects that I could take into my job of making people's lives easier, making them hate their job a little bit less, making them happier to come to work every day. And that's kind of what tilted me in the IO psych direction. And I realized that in order to get experience, you need a job, but in order to get a job, you need experience. And it is kind of a pretty annoying circle that's really hard to break into. And so I was managing this practice already, and I just asked my boss, like, can I take what I'm doing in classes and do them here? And she was like, yeah. So just by asking and getting that like confirmation, because I kind of hit a dead end knowing that I wanted to be on the business side of psychology, I had to do more. And I could either go into another HR paper pusher role, which I really did not enjoy, or go back to school to focus on the people side of the business. And so that kind of made my decision. And it was a year-long professional program. I worked full-time and did school full-time. It really sucked. It was a lot of work, but I'm so happy on the other side of it. And it was 100% worth it.
I think this is really important for all three of you to hear in terms of, where do you go from here? It's intimidating to say the least, right? Am I right with that? Yeah, I'm seeing some, head nods for sure. It definitely is intimidating. What do you do? In psychology, it's really necessary to get a higher degree a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times it's really necessary for licensure purposes. So in order to practice psychology for a lot of different areas and of the psychology, you have to be licensed. And in order to be licensed, you need the degree. It's one of the requirements. So, Anna was talking about ABA, applied behavioral analysis, that for a lot of applied behavioral analysis, there needs a degree or a supervisor who has a degree. I don't know. Is that correct, Anna?
So the programs I were in, did it both in Ohio and here. You need a high school degree, you take a course, and then you get a certificate.
Okay,
so you guys can start doing it right now or whenever. And it's really great experience to back up your resume.
Okay, so the certificate's needed, but it's not you don't need a higher degree. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah. For me, I saw that a doctorate degree could put me in a place of marketability. So if I'm competing, because we're in an open market here. So if I'm in an open market with a master's degree and then a doctorate degree, I'm going to be seen in a different way. In regards to skill wise, in terms of how good I am at my job and how good other people are at their jobs, just anecdotally, I've found equal skill no matter the degree. I've seen high school people that are way better than me, high school degree people that are way better than I am in terms of helping kids and helping people. And those are some of my role models growing up. So it's not about skill. It's just, it's just about, like I said, it's about licensure. So what you're allowed to do, for example, you can't do psychological testing with only a bachelor's, to my knowledge, in Massachusetts at least. There's some masters that could do it from my knowledge, but really it's a doctorate of clinical psychology or an MD, medical degree, medical doctorate that can do it. So the other thing that's really important, and I really want to express this to you three, because you're in such a young phase. You might not feel, I sound so old right now. So you might not feel young, but you are. And the thing is that, I really mean this very, very sincerely, is that I've seen a lot of people who want a doctorate, but skipped on it because life happens. They have kids, or they move, or they want to travel, or whatever they do. And they've always thought about going back and getting a doctorate, but they're too busy and they don't have the time. There was a big part of me that just wanted a doctorate. I'm the first in my family to get it. And I'm just suggest that if there's a chunk of you that wants a doctorate, I would say, it's important, because these desires and these hopes and these values they rarely go away, from what I've seen with people. And when you're young, it's important to plan. It's like, if there's a big thing you want, whether it's a doctor or whatever big goal, take it seriously. Take that desire, that hope seriously. Does that make sense? Okay, cool.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you both. I know that's a topic that I see students just about every day, is what degree do I go get? Kind of how do I make it happen? And you're right, you got to plan it out. You got to know what you want, and you got to not be afraid to go for it, because otherwise you might sit on it and regret it. And that's the last thing we want.
And the other thing too, and I'll say this at the end too, but you could always reach out to me. You could always reach out to me. Whoever's listening to this, just know that that's why I'm here, is to help. I think alumni have a responsibility. Yeah,
absolutely. So, and that's one of the reasons why we only have alumni on these panels, is so that they understand, they know, and that they can communicate that effectively.
Yeah.
So next question, kind of going into your time at Ohio Wesleyan and thinking about everything you did, your coursework. I know it's a lot to kind of take in at once, but thinking about the skills that you obtained during your time at Ohio Wesleyan, Whether it's one or a couple, could both of you just talk about either the skills that you honed during your time at Ohio Wesleyan and how it helped you, skills you learned, basically just what from your experience on this small liberal arts campus in Delaware, Ohio, kind of helped get you where you are now?
Sure. I think the most important part for me was because it was such a small campus, I really learned how to be assertive and advocate for myself. And that has been my crowning achievement throughout my career. I got my first job out of college by cold calling psych practices in the Columbus area and convincing them to give me interviews.
Wow.
One woman was like, I don't have a job. And I was like, are you sure? And I ended up working with her for the next year, and she's still one of my closest friends. So ask questions. If there's not a job, but you like the company, call them. Bring them a box of donuts and say, oh, my resume is tucked inside too. I'd really love to learn about what you're doing today. I know there are HIPAA like privacy things, but like, do you have anything you can share with me? Because people on LinkedIn will answer you if you reach out. If you're a student, as long as you're not like creepy about it or salesy about it and are just like, I saw your job title, I saw the company you work for, I'm super interested in that. I would love to know what you're doing, like whatever you're able to discuss if you have any time. Take them out for coffee, whatever, because randomly reaching out to strangers is how my career has grown. And it has built me up so much. And I've made really great lasting connections from it. So don't be afraid to ask the questions in class, disclose in class, ask your professors, or like randomly stalk people on LinkedIn and send them messages, because I do that way too frequently and it typically works out pretty well.
And it's really funny you say that, because that's actually how I was unemployed and just walked into the Mid-Ohio Food Bank and asked to talk with the HR director to see if they had any internships. And they gave me the internship on the spot, because they told me nobody just comes in, everybody just throws their resume online. So that kind of thing is great to hear, because that extra mile really does pay off.
For me, I wish I learned assertiveness in college. That would have been nice. I had to get that one later. For me, it's all about breaks and repairs. There's something in psychology that's really fascinating called attachment theory. I would highly suggest taking a look at it because it's amazing. Shameless plug, I do have an episode about that on my podcast, Mental Health Explained. It's attachment theory is incredibly useful with working with kids and working with people. And one of the big tenets of it, not tenets, but like one of the big ideas around it is that relationships that breaks and they have repairs. And Ohio Wesleyan, I challenged myself a lot, and I took a lot of risks, and they didn't all work out, and I learned how to evaluate what I did, be like, what did I do wrong? How can I, do better next time? I learned how to get back up. Psychologically, it can be very crushing sometimes when things don't work out the way you think it is going to, but you know what? That's going to happen out there. And the thing is, that's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Or there's a good news and bad news to that, right? So bad news a little bit is that is going to happen out there. But the good news is that, just like what I said, there is always an opportunity to repair out there, for the most part. It's really, there are so many times that, failure comes around, but it's really not final. It's an opportunity to do something else, or an opportunity to maybe try the same thing again in a different way. And succeeding after you fail is amazing. It really is one of the best feelings in the world. So I was like, am I going to say this during this presentation? There was something I was debating whether or not I was going to say it. I'm going to go for it, which is in Ohio West. I'm not going to say any names or whatever, but I remember Ohio Wesleyan, legit, one of the teachers was like, you're not going to become a doctor. Like, I remember they were like telling me, you're not going to make it. And I was like, okay, challenge accepted. And here I am presenting Dr. Alex McNeil. So, you try and try again. It really is important. So There you go. That's what I learned at Ohio Wesleyan.
No, absolutely. I know our office, and it's great to hear you say that because we frequently push the idea of failing forward, the idea
Yeah,
of
exactly.
making mistakes and taking what you can that was good from it and picking yourself back up and working that into the next situation.
Yeah.
Because every opportunity isn't going to be the opportunity. It's not going to be the dream job, but you can learn something about yourself. You can take something from it into the next one to make it even better for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we just got one more question here before we go into closing thoughts and before we go into more of the question where students can get their questions answered. Just what advice would you give? I mean, after graduation, thinking about leaving school, I know for some people that's a terrifying thought when that May comes around and you lose your dorm, you got to figure everything out. But in terms of getting employed, in terms of finding your passion, just what advice do you have for our students?
So mine is, it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but it's way easier to find out what you don't like. So spending my year in forensics, I felt like I was in CSI and I thought it was super cool. And then I realized I didn't like the clients I was working with. So I went into ABA and I loved the idea of what I was doing, but the logistics of either spending 10 hours in a center with one super high behavior kid or driving between people's homes on different schedules didn't work out well for me. I didn't like the hurry up and wait because I have an hour between sessions that are 5 minutes apart. I have nothing else I can do in the meantime. So finding what I didn't like allowed me to pick the pieces of what I did like. I do like working with families. I do like assessment. I do love the business side, which the HR, as much as it wasn't my favorite place, allowed me to find that I like the business side of psychology. So from all the little things that you don't like, take those profiles and build what you do. And there's so many different areas of psych, and you're not going to know unless you try it. So try ABA, try clinical, try whatever area tickles your fancy, and then start there and build the profile of your dream job, and then figure out how to get there, because there are ways to get to any career or build any career. So, but it's hard to like, oh, what do I love? I don't know, but it's really easy to identify what makes me pretty up, like what makes me unhappy. So taking those pieces has been, sounds like a negative output or like outlook, but that's kind of how I got to where I am.
No, but working all that stuff around the mission of the kind of work you want to do, the kind of population you want to work with, all of that just helps mold it into, you're right, what you do want to do, and that's important.
There's also these times, these, have y'all seen Inside Out, movie Inside Out with like the Pixar movie? Well, if you haven't seen Inside Out, it's really fun. It's really fun. There's a lot of science behind it. There's a lot of stuff that's like, of course it's fictitious. There's this one thing in this movie Inside Out. I'm going to spoil this movie, but it you should have seen this by now. but they basically have a scene where there are these cherished memories that they have, and what ends up happening is they have these incredible experiences in their life, and they turn into something called core memories, and these core memories develop parts of their personality. And I think, as I'm going to piggyback off what Anna was saying, which is that, dip your toes in a lot of different pools and try a lot of different things. And I think I totally agree. You'll start to sense what you don't like. And the other thing is you'll start to have these like core memories, these like really magic moments where something really touches you deeply and impacts you deeply. And that's how you know. And you also get, have you guys ever had like a moment in your life where it's like very energizing, but meaningfully energizing? Like it's very meaningful and energizing at the same time, and you're like, whoa, this is incredible. Like, I want to do that again, right? That's the kind of feeling you get. And when you get that, and you get that in this field, keep that in mind. That's what you go towards. Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss. That's really what it's about. Try on all these things, keep learning, keep studying, keep, talking to people. I'm a huge fan of a special type of therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy, which what it does is that it breaks the therapy down into helping people identify their values. What do they find valuable? And they split it into different areas of a person's life, like relationships, work, school, leisure, hobbies, citizenship, faith, whatever areas of their life. And what they do is they track their values and they say, okay, every day or every week, how can I get closer to what I value? So I guess if I could give a piece of advice, it's very similar to what I said before about the doctorate, but it's about everything, which is that identify your values, what's important to you, and follow those things. Because the thing is that a lot of times those values don't go away. Sometimes they change, but they don't really go away, especially if you have a value that you're putting on the back burner. Balance those values. Work hard, but also do your relationship. Relationships are important. Attend school, but also if you have a passion and a hobby, for me, it was hip hop in Columbus. Like I did a podcast with my friend Blueprint, Super Duty Tough Work. Shout out to Super Duty Tough Work. And we did a podcast and I got to know Blueprint because I was doing b-boying, breakdancing in Columbus, Ohio, while I was in Ohio. Like I didn't neglect that when I was at Ohio Wesleyan. That balance, those of my values, what I find important, keeping that up is really critical. And also attending to those things that are really important to you is critical too. So if I could give any advice, it would be all of those things.
Awesome. Thank you both. I know that that's very impactful and very helpful because, I mean, in all honesty, these are the kinds of programs that I wish I had had when I was a student. I'm not sure if you're feeling the same way, just to help, provide some advice and provide some guidance. But this is kind of the end of the structure. I'm going to ask each of the panelists just to share any closing thoughts they have, anything they haven't had a chance to mention. And then from there, we're going to turn off the screen share. We're going to turn everyone's video on, and we're just going to go into a discussion where you can ask questions, where you can talk about, if you have any personal questions that you want to ask about fields, about degrees, about anything, this is the time to ask it. So we'll go ahead and finish with closing thoughts.
Okay, well, I just wanted to thank you for putting this on. This is something I totally would have valued as a student because like staring at a textbook and sitting in lecture, you have no idea what it's going to look like outside once you get handed your diploma and you're like, what's next?
Yeah.
So I'm happy to act as a resource for anyone and everyone, even if you just want to chat. If you're anywhere in San Diego, I'm consistently looking for interns. So please call me. But yeah, this is such a great program. And if anybody needs anything, I'm always open and my email address is up there. So you're welcome to email me at any time.
And I can also send out on request if anybody didn't catch it or wants it. I'll send out email contact information for all the panelists, all the students afterwards.
I wrote a little blurb for this, and I think it's important. It's just a few points. To the three students that are here, are there more than three? Is it just three right now?
I think it's just three right now. Yeah.
That's awesome. You three are getting some incredible experiences. And I echo what Anna and Newton were saying, is that I wish I had this. So where you are right now at Ohio Wesleyan, there's the advantage of learning about the field of psychology and any field you are interested in a very gradual way. So you can start to recognize the part of the field that do speak to you, the parts of the field that do speak to you, that are important to you, like I said, that you value. I think that this learning process is critical, and that you keep reading and learning and exploring different interests and subjects that will lead themselves into what's important to you. In time, you'll get drawn to different things, whether it's psychology or otherwise. You might not go for psychology, and that's okay. And when you start to interact with them, there's this wonderful intersection of three things, which is that these things are rewarding, that your career, right, is rewarding, challenging, and also aligned to your strengths. There's an Albert Einstein quote about, a fish being frustrated if he had to climb a tree. Like, it really is, what is your strengths? What speaks to what you're good at? It's good to stretch. I'm not saying don't stretch. It's good to stretch what, your limitations and everything like that, but you know what you're good at. And it really does feel good to embrace that. Take your time to dip your toe into many different areas that you feel drawn to. And while there might be people that might discourage you on your path, I mentioned that story earlier. There are many, many people who are here to help throughout the journey, and whatever the journey brings, wherever the journey takes you. And that's why we're here. You can seriously reach me at alexmcneil.com. That's AlexMacneil.com. And if you want to talk things out or bounce off ideas off of me, please go to the website, reach out. For the population of OU that's listening to this, for anyone feeling like they really don't have anybody to turn to ask about life after college, I think it's important that I'm available to you to speak with you and for you to seek out. And like I said, sometimes it's as simple as having somebody to bounce ideas off of. And in this case, you have the advantage of having somebody with a doctorate in clinical psychology. So again, that's alexmcneil.com. And I appreciate you three for coming through to this, because I remember when I was at Ohio Wesleyan, there were definitely a lot of things that I didn't attend that I wish I attended. And, just being present and showing up means a lot, and I think will really benefit you. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for all your thoughtful responses, for all the great information. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and turn off the screen share. I'm going to turn off the recording, and I'm going to have everybody turn their video on, turn their mics on, and we're just going to have a discussion. So give me 1 second. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to stop this.